We've made it to the end of the black and white era. It is season 6, end of season, what happened? The end of season, what happened? It's here, it's into the Black Archive, end of season, what happened? The music could come in at any minute, but Owen is being stingy, conservative, and tight, and so we won't have the music yet.
Okay, I don't want to play because I don't want to overwhelm people, but okay.
There we go. End of season, what happened?
The horrific music, which even I now hate.
Yeah, I even dislike it, but it's tradition now. You know when you're tied into something and you just can't bring yourself to leave it.
I think I've got some other music in here which might be different. One second, let me see what I've got on our clipboard.
I know you've got Last Chance Saloon in there. Oh, that works. He has an idea.
We've done it. We're through. Black and white is over. Colour is just on the horizon. It's time for end of season. What happened on into the Black Archive with Owen and James.
End of season. What happened? Blah 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 blah.
And that is why I cannot speak. But anyway, let's have enough of the music.
Owen, okay, it's the end of season. So what happened?
It was I don't want to say disappointment, but it's just a forgettable mess, much like last season.
Yes, it was the same. It's the same going through the motions feeling, and you can see why when we get to the next season, everything gets rebooted and everything gets given a fresh coat of paint, because it was clear that season 6 was a show that was running on fumes in terms of ideas.
It's like last time it was a bit rough. Last season was a bit rough around the edges, but this time it just kind of went back to Hartnell era productions as well after time.
Yeah, like quarries and cheap stuff. And stories that were serviceable but just never felt imaginative.
It's not even quarries, because we didn't really get quarries in Hartnell's era. It's more just which we're very much down to when you think of most of the villains' costuming. It's all very sharp edges, very boxy. They've just got a box and drew a face on it looking kind of thing. And all the villains which we don't have that on, all the ones we've had in previous seasons, whether that be Ice Warriors, Cybermen, and that's about it.
Yeah, did we even have Cybermen this season? So that was last season.
Yeah, we had the Invasion.
Oh yeah, Cybermen and the Invasion, aren't they?
The Invasion, yes.
Yes, the Invasion.
I don't think which helps our memory here is that we had a month's recording break midway through this season.
Yes, so this one's a bit of a patchwork in terms of actually going back and reviewing what was there. So shall we get into the awards? Because if you haven't listened to any of these end of season What Happened episodes before, we go through, give the episodes some awards, we'll rank the episodes, and we'll also rank the season with all the other seasons that we've watched right from back in season 1.
Excluding series 12 Flux, because obviously...
Yeah, Flux doesn't count.
We do think it's even for us, it's a little bit unfair to compare Flux with all of the really old ones, because obviously even with Chibnall's writings, Flux is a lot better in other ways. It's completely different kettle of fish.
Yes, Flux is dramatically better than all other Doctor Who. That's the important thing, we're making it clear. Including all modern Who.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm just saying which, like, visual effects wise and production value, completely different level to what we've got currently because of technical reasons more than anything.
Yes, we're just going through it narratively, and we're going from the back. So, where do you want to start?
Before we do that, let's just quickly explain one little thing. We are still using the playout system. So
the playout system.
4.5 minutes, if we are still talking utter rubbish, we will be played out to make sure we don't go on about absolute rubbish for way too long.
Not that it will stop us going on for absolute rubbish for 4.5 minutes. So you have to think it's a compromise.
Yeah, we've got to compromise it somewhere, don't we, really?
This is what you're here for. You're here for this absolute bullshit that we talk about day in, day out.
Shall we make a start then?
Yes.
Our best companion.
Well, it has to be Zoe.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Yeah, it has to be. Zoe is the best female companion we've had since Barbara. She's worked throughout the whole season. She's had a lot more to do than Jamie, frankly. She feels like she's taken over a lot of that.
And she's a lot less annoying than Jamie was.
There's less whining. You get the sense that they've written a character who's sort of layered and has dimensions, but at the same time, at the same time, she doesn't fall into those archetypes that we've seen so many other companions fall into, like Polly and Dodo and Vicky. It just feels like we've had the same things. Victoria as well. Hell, it shows you how bad she was. I barely even remembered, and that was only last season. Zoe's a complete shift from that. She shows you that you can write a good female character on Doctor Who. It just took them quite a while to figure it out.
Yeah, and it's also because she not only is active in the story, but she also is just generally active. She does stuff. She's not afraid to get down and dirty and have a fight with people.
And I think one thing that stands out.
Yeah,
she's very engaging. One thing that stands out is you feel like when she's not talking, she's still thinking. Like you get the sense the character has like an outer life beyond the script, if you know what I mean.
You can see her cogs whirring on in the background, trying to work out solutions and remember things.
Yeah, and you can understand that, because once you can do that with a character, you know them like a person. And if you know them like a person, they're usually a pretty good character. I
just wish we had her first episode. That's my only wish.
Yeah, because we only get 5 Zoe stories that are existing, that are surviving.
No, we've got 6.
Have we got 6?
Yes.
Wasn't it in the first episode?
She wasn't in for Wheel in Space.
Oh, yeah, because Wheel in Space is before the... Yeah, forgot about Wheel in Space.
Which was last season, but doesn't exist.
Yes.
Every episode this season.
Yeah, okay, right. So, yeah, it is
one
6.
of which we haven't watched.
Oh, which is Space Pirates, because it was 7. Yeah, right, I'm with you now. Yeah, for some reason, when you said first, I thought to myself, was she not in one of them? And then I sort of automatically said, well, she has to be in 5 then. No,
she's been in all of ones this season. We just don't have For Wheel in Space, which was her first one.
Yeah, that'd have been interesting to see. So, because we see a very brief glimpse of that origin in the War Games right at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in the dark to us. And then if that's the best companion, the worst companion by default has to be
Jamie McCrimmon. Which continues to be a shame, because he started off so well in his first season and season 4. Season 4, generally, it's still my favourite season because every story hits the right note. And a lot of that is because of the Jamie and Doctor interaction. But we've lost that for the last 2 seasons. They've just kind of forgotten how to write Jamie.
Yes, Jamie's become less a character, more an instrument in a way. Like, all he really does is do sort of the blind action while the Doctor and Zoe go off and actually do the plot. It feels like Jamie just sort of gets siphoned off. I mean, we even have that in the War Games. Jamie feels like he's on his entirely own thing. And by and large, it's just kind of the action stuff. He doesn't really have a lot of character depth anymore. The most you get is references to Scotland, and that's where we leave him.
He's just become mildly irritating.
Yeah. He reminds me of where Ben was, for example. Ben always used to be the whiner and the complainer, and he would always have a go. And it feels like Jamie sort of got to that point by the end because they lost the ideas for him. And it's a shame because there are so many episodes in season 4 where you think, he's fantastic, he's brilliant, I want to spend more time with him. Season 4 Jamie is probably the best companion we've had, if you're isolating it.
He's definitely on bar to say, like Ian and Barbara in the first time, which I think I would still say are probably some of my favourite companions.
Yeah, at least on par. But by the end, that's almost been completely undone because he doesn't even have, at least last season he had the thing with Victoria, right? At least there was a thing he was involved in, even if it wasn't very good. Here, there's just nothing for him to do in these episodes. Zoe does more of the action stuff, or at least the action stuff that really makes a difference.
Do you think it's because in season 4, the female companion was Polly, who was typically associated with Ben? So Ben was protecting Polly. Do you think it's because Jamie didn't have anyone to protect in season 4, where he did in 5 and 6, which makes him worse?
I suppose you could view it that way. There's an argument to be made that because Ben and Polly were associate with each other, the Doctor and Jamie became the secondary double act to counter that one.
And also, he didn't have to protect Polly. Ben did that.
Yeah, so he kind of got to be the free spirit and the independent one and the one that would do kind of the funny stuff. But he's even lost his humour. Like, Jamie doesn't feel like a funny companion. He hasn't for 2 series. It was like they totally forgot what made the character work.
The last time we really had funny Jamie was in Tomb of the Cybermen.
And yeah, since then he became worn down as a character. It just felt like they ran out of all the ideas really, really quickly and just couldn't come up with anything else, which is a shame.
Like we've previously said, which we don't like, the fact which, particularly around this era, all the companions only stuck around for a year, with the exception of Jamie. I can sort of see why they brought in that rule. Yeah,
I mean, obviously this rule kind of goes out of the way later on, but certainly you can see the argument for it, because 3 seasons was 2 seasons too long based on the writing quality. We're being played out. Isn't it nice to hear the play out?
Let's move on to our next one, James.
What is the next one?
I'm opening up for you,
You're
James.
opening up for you, are you? Okay, well, the next award on my list is the best setting. So that's, you can almost call it best world building, like the best place we go to. You know, is it intriguing? Does it feel like a whole place, or does it feel like 2 sets pulled together on a budget of about 10 quid?
I am going to sort of be weird with this one here, because I'm going to cut a story a little bit.
Okay.
For War Games,
yeah,
if you exclude the last episode.
So, right, yeah, that's fair enough, because we're going by settings. So, the War Games' last episode, if you don't know, is entirely separate from the main story. It takes place in Gallifrey or on a ship or whatever. It's
almost a completely separate story with a few elements that kind of floating.
Yeah, but the previous, and yes, this is the right number. The previous 9 episodes in this story all take place in this absolutely berserk combination of different wars from human history that have been pulled out of time together as pretty much a scientific test.
Yeah.
And it's completely bananas, and it's absolutely the most ambitious, out there setting that we've ever seen on Who up to this point.
And normally when we go, it's ambitious, we normally mean it turned out to be utterly crap. But this time, it's an exception to that rule, because it turned out to be really good.
It fulfills the ambition, and also the way that they write around the setting is really good, because they just withhold information until it becomes important and seed it. So it's like, oh, we're in 1917. Oh, this is a weird 1917. Oh, there's a mist around. Is there a problem with that? Oh, these are Romans. And then they go around the American Civil War, and the Scottish Army's fighting against the Redcoats, and all sorts of places.
And even the external alien, I don't know whether it's ever goes as a ship or just a different part of the planet. Yeah. But that sort of like alien bit, how it's sort of like a bizarre university as well. Really kind of blends in really well. It's all built up really well. I really do like it. It's like the students are there to study for participants, which is something that really happens in universities. The professors will have an experiment, whether it be with like animals, something like that, and they'll get the students to watch it. It's very much like if you watch the episode of Community where they're trying to test professors' theory about how long someone will stay in a particular room. It's that kind of thing, but a lot more dark.
Yeah, it's a Hunger Games style control room, and everything adds to the atmosphere of the episode. There's a really clear tone, and that comes from the setting.
Which one did you go for? Because we were about to be played out.
Yeah, see, I knew you were going to talk about War Games, and I thought, frankly, it was too obvious that was the best setting, so I wanted to give a shout in mind to the Mind Robber, which I actually think is a really cool setting, but it just gets overshadowed by how good the War Games one is. Because there's all sorts going on in that episode. There's fictional characters around that are pulled from seemingly nowhere, and the setting changes all the time because it's sort of a mental scape. So that's a really cool episode that I think is a bit underrated. I mean, I definitely liked it, although I see where the issues were with it. War Games good, this one good as well. A good season for settings, I'll give them that.
Yeah.
What's the next award?
For worst setting. We've had the best, now we're down for worst.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ones that have felt like they've been pulled together for 10 quid.
Maybe this season.
There's a few candidates for this, I feel.
Yes, I have gone. Actually, do you want to go first? Which one did you go for?
Yeah, I can go first. I went with the Dominators setting.
Ooh.
The reason
I
being...
went. Yes.
No, you say yours, actually. You say yours.
For Crotons.
Yeah, I could see why you'd go with that as well. Because the Crotons is very cramped. Should we start talking about the Crotons, actually? Because that's a very cramped, iffy setting.
It suffers from the same problem which the Power of the Daleks had, where you only see two separate scenes and there's apparently an entire world working outside of the story, but you just never quite really feel like there's anything going on outside the classroom and the bedroom. You don't really feel like anything else is going on. Now, I chose that compared to the Dominators because in the Dominators you get to see the inner workings of this planet. You get to see the pacifists debating with themselves about the pros and cons of doing this. You know which they don't like to go to this place because of a particular event which happened. I feel like there's a lot of world building which happens there, where for Crotons you don't have any of that.
See, I wouldn't say that because the Crotons has the mythology about I can't remember what their name is, but you know the superior race that like they give their best subjects to. Is that the Crotons? Oh, so what was it the Thals or something like that? No, that's from the Daleks way back, isn't it? Where is my head? So right, so the Crotons take the best students from the inferior race, and that's where you went. Right. Cool. But that has its own mythology. It's implied that that's been happening for quite a while, that's how they've lived in service of these machine people.
But to me, you don't get to feel like how anything else on that planet works.
I can see that. I think my main issue with the Dominators is just the ambition of the story is there, and they just put them in a quarry.
Yeah.
Like the world building is present, but they completely undercut it by the fact the thing looks so like William Shatner Star Trek and not in a good way.
Yeah.
It completely undercuts the feeling of the story. So there's good stuff there, and I like the way that the Dominators and the Pacifist race are put against each other, and that's similar to a lot of episodes we had in the Hartnell era where there were kind of two squabbling races on one planet. But yeah, the fact is they've put it in a damn quarry and it feels cheap and it feels lazy, it feels tired and cliched in all the worst ways.
So that is potentially, we're discussing this, that is potentially the last time we discuss the setting. Because next season it's like kind of all based on one setting. And we're kind of there sat there not really being sure what we'll be doing next season. So if you've got any ideas...
Yeah, an alternative award.
In place of best settings, so any way we could adapt it for the situation, please tweet in at Black Archive Pod, and we might implement that change.
Yes, you might just have an award right here. So get thinking. Now, on to awards that we do have and that we already have and have already decided. What is the next one on our list?
So, the thing which Doctor Who, even now, so often gets wrong. It is the best story end.
Yes, sponsored. No, it's not. It's the worst one. We'll get to that. We're close.
Yeah, James, God.
Can we have this? Can we have best story end to be sponsored by Enemy of the World?
No.
Straight out of hand. All right. Fine. What is the best story
end? Because Enemy of the World has a dreadful ending as well.
Yeah, but he does get literally thrown into the time vortex. That's not bad.
That doesn't make up for it.
I don't care. He gets thrown in the time vortex. That's badass. Everyone knows that.
Right. Best story end. I
know we're going to disagree. I know we're going to disagree.
Who wants to go first?
I am going to say it's the War Games, knowing it's not for you because I know you don't like it.
I think the War Games for me would be the best if that last episode did not exist or that episode was counted as a separate thing.
See, I think the last episode helps it. If you haven't listened to our War Games podcast, you really should because it was a hell of an episode, one of my favourites, and we have a long conversation about this. So if you want any more context about this problem, go there and check that out. But yeah, for me, it's War Games. What's yours?
I think mine's going to be controversial here.
What is it?
Seeds of Death.
Really? I suppose there's like it's not bad pace, that ending.
I feel like it's done well. We've got the twist of what's his name, Farnham, gets realizing his morals and protecting the human race, and I feel like it's a lot more of a natural end compared to some of the other ones which we've had, which have felt a bit sudden.
I'll give you that. It's got a good moral ending. It's one of the few things about that episode I liked, to be quite honest.
Yeah. As I say, I don't really like much of this episode, but the ending is definitely one of the better ones. And this is also where it comes into fact, which we don't remember half the stories.
Yes. I think, on a general note, I actually think the endings of season 6 stories have been largely better than how they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel as rushed anymore, and they don't feel as sudden. They feel like the endings have been more thought out, and they come to a more natural end by and large.
I think the only other one which I've really had issues with is for Dominated, because it is stolen from Planet of Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yeah, it is the exact same thing. Yeah, the reason I am going with the War Games, and there is a full podcast on why, so, I'm not going to repeat myself too much. But for me, the reason it works is because the Doctor has to face his own demons.
Yeah.
And it's the first real time. I mean, we had episodes where, like in Power of the Daleks, where he was annoyed about his plan not working and he was kind of unknown, or the Web of Fear, where this thing doesn't work. Like, those are good endings because they draw on the Doctor's own issues, and we don't get a lot of that. The War Games is the ultimate manifestation of that idea. You can say what you want about the last episode feeling out of place in comparison to... I think the reason it doesn't for me is because it's in line with the Doctor's own thing. And it's not really to do with the setting at this point. It's the natural continuation of he's already met a Time Lord. He knows he's got to face it. And, even though he thinks the story's over, it's not, because he's still got things to deal with. Not perfect, but I think it's really good myself.
As I say, I think if it ended on that 9 episode, it would definitely have been higher up on my list. But I feel like that last episode does let it down a little bit. Yeah,
I, in a sense, they kind of had to have it because the Time Lords needed their own space.
Yeah, and they needed to work out a way to bring an end to Hartnell's era, so to speak.
Well, Troughton's era.
Troughton's era, yeah, sorry.
But yeah, I think it works. But Seeds of Death one's not bad either.
Yeah. Right, should we flip that on its head then?
To the worst story end.
For worst story end,
sponsored
by the Censorites.
The Censorites. Can we have a round of applause again for the Censorites like we do every time we do these?
Respect for humans, which are in the pipes until the very last moment. And the administrator, which was indeed dealt with.
The administrator will continue to be dealt with as long as we live. Yes! Full applause. That's what we want. The administrator and the humans in the pipes. Big shout out to Enemy of the World as well. The humans are just in a cave. Goodness. Do you know, I wish we had like YouTube videos where we can have, the eye links that come up and go in the top right, so we can be like, oh, all these jokes that we're making that you might not understand. Here's the podcast. Go and figure out. What is your worst story end?
I think this is going to be that's a very controversial one, but I have reasons.
Oh, it's going to be the War Games, isn't it?
No.
Oh, it's not.
It's the Invasion.
Yeah. I don't mind that, actually. I don't mind that ending at all.
I think it's all very well and very good until they go pull a Censorites we've dealt with the administrator. In this case, we've dealt with the Cybermen.
Yeah, I guess. It is kind of done.
We go into a room and then we go, problem solved. We're at the story end and the Doctor is now going off. Goodbye.
See, I still think the episode earned the time it had on the ending. I agree that it's a bit sudden, but it earns the time, and we have a bit of time with Lethbridge, and I suppose they needed that because of what they were setting up for next season.
Yeah. As I said, the issue for me is that it is sudden, and they do kind of forget, which they do actually need to end it. They just kind of go, oh fuck, we've run out of time again.
Yeah. It still kind of feels rounded though. Like in my head, it still feels kind of well rounded.
Yes, but I still would rather we have at least something of the aftermath, or us getting to the point of the aftermath rather than us just going into room and we've solved it.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
Which one is for you?
Now, my worst story end is the Crotons. And it's for a very, very important reason. I can't remember it.
It was when they
If it's that bad.
they melt them, remember?
No, they melt them.
Yes, they melt them. Yes. They melt for crotons.
What I'm saying is that if your story end isn't dramatic enough that I can't remember it only a few weeks after I've seen it, it's not very good, is it?
No.
Like, this is the issue I have. Like, episode 1 of the Crotons, I remember shots, like level of specific, because the start's good. The thing is that after that, it completely loses the momentum, and by the ending, you don't care, and then it doesn't give you any reason to care after the fact because the ending doesn't have any dynamic things going on.
Mm-hmm.
The Dominator's ending is a bit meh as well.
Yeah,
it feels a bit too violent for the Doctor as a character.
Yeah, it just feels like they just kind of ran out of time and ran out of ideas. They just copied a previous story.
Yeah, it just went with the cheap, blow it up.
Yeah.
Technique. But hey, destroy. that's the best thing about that episode. Just screams of destroy.
And speaking of Scream,
which
was the best?
My best Scream is Destroy from the Dominator. You notice how I segued that in?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, it is. It's not up there with kill, 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 kill.
No,
I don't think anything is in terms of that. But Destroy is pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, I can't, you know that particular Dominator that was always saying it? The actor who did that hammed it up to the most ridiculous extreme. And it's absolutely brilliant. It reminds me of, here's a question for you. There's a really good 6-part episode with another overacting guy, and I can't remember what it is. I think it was during the Hartnell stuff. No, can't remember. But yeah, there was a really good overacting bit in that, and it's like it was just hammed up as anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the Dominators are just insane. They're acting as if they're in a Shakespearean film the whole time.
And they're also so useless.
Yeah. And then, and then the Quarks as well, which we'll get onto later, I think. What a waste that is. Whole story kind of falls in on itself. It's the Dominators are they're built up as like Daleks. Basically, Dalek level threat, and they do nothing.
Yeah.
What about yours, Owen?
This is one which I normally can never think of an answer for. And I'm going to continue that trend.
Do you want me to try and give you one?
I can't think of any of them.
I like the scream that all the Romans do anytime we see them in war games.
For duplicated clip of them running at the camera.
Yeah, the duplicated clip. Yeah, the fact that the exact same scream is used twice, I think, should add to its appeal.
Right, due to my inability to think of good answers for my own categories, it's time to look at the best side character.
The best side piece. The best side hustle.
I've got a feeling I know who you're going to go with.
Yeah? Do you want to tell me who I went with then?
I'm going to go with the most generic one, which I think we both would have picked unless we're being deliberately obscure to try to avoid going for him, which is Lethbridge Stewart.
No, I haven't gone with Lethbridge Stewart because I've been obscure and tried to avoid him. Because we talked about it last season.
I've done the same, that's what I'm saying, which is the obscure, it's the line of sight one, which we would have chosen if we were actually answering this honestly.
Look,
rather trying to
we love Lethbridge Stewart. It's so obvious. But the fact is, in the next season, he's basically a companion. So it feels a bit of a cheat to me if he's going to be a companion.
Yeah, next season he'll definitely become a companion.
So,
well, who did you choose for this time, then?
There were a lot of options I went through. I ended up going with the War Chief, funnily enough. Just because I enjoyed watching him.
I would say which is more of a baddie, though.
He is more of a baddie, but I'd call him a side character in a way because he's not the primary baddie.
No.
Like, the Warlord is still the primary baddie. It's just because the War Chief has a differing opinion. Like, the Warlord is still the one who did the genocide.
I've also gone with someone from 4 Games.
You have? I'm guessing somebody like Carstairs.
Yes, Carstairs.
Yeah, Carstairs is good.
He does more than Jamie. Yeah, he's more interested in Jamie. He does more than Jamie. He's very fun, a lot more fun to be around than Jamie. And I love him as he attempts to work out what's real and what isn't real, particularly when he gets re-brainwashed.
Oh, yeah, he goes through a lot. You know that scene with him in the brainwashing chair, like in episode 4? That's great.
Yeah. He's a lovely companion, and I love.
Yeah, I hope he did find character. Jennifer. To be honest, I mean, I hope we found Jennifer 5 episodes ago instead of just sending her off to be a nurse. But well, that's in the past now. Carstairs is good in terms of a good side character. I could go with them for sure. Is there anybody else that's even worth bringing up? Oh, Lemuel Gulliver from Mind Robber. Just having Gulliver around is really cool, and all of his sayings that are ripped out of the book that occasionally just lose their relevance. A bit like an NPC in a video game.
Yeah,
that's really inventive. I might even change mine. Actually, I think that Gulliver thing's really inventive and really good fun. So yeah, I'll go with Gulliver from the Mind Robber.
Now, shall we go with for baddies?
The best baddies.
For best baddie.
Yes, not excluding the Daleks anymore, because no Daleks at the moment.
No Daleks there. Who did you go for in the best baddie?
The best baddie I've chosen, and it's a bit of a controversial call because calling them a baddie is an odd one. But I have gone with the Time Lords.
Okay.
Yeah, I've gone with the Time Lords. You can say they're not a baddie, but at the end of the day, for the Doctor, they are the worst people you could come across. So based on that, I'm going to call them a baddie. And the reason for that is they're ridiculously powerful. They're incredibly enigmatic. They get this real build-up throughout it, and it's actually paid off properly. Like, every single scene, you see just how overpowered these are.
Yeah.
You know, they dealt with the warlord, you know, almost as well as they dealt with the administrator.
But are they evil?
Well, no. Not like generally, but I suppose there are some Time Lords that are evil. Like Rassilon are evil.
But these ones which we're dealing with, are they evil?
They're not evil. They've just got a particular opinion.
But surely to be a baddie, they have to be evil. What is...
Well, the Doctor considers them evil because he believes that their view of the universe and not interfering is evil because you're allowing evil to happen. Yeah. So you can make the argument. I'm not saying they're a complete baddie. I'm just saying an argument can be made. And it's mainly just an excuse for me to talk about how well they're actually handled in that episode because it's brilliant.
Okay. I just went for everyone in the War Games.
Every single baddie is like a different level of interesting.
They're all amazing, whether it's the Warlord, the...
Turtleneck Lord.
Turtleneck, Warlord, War Chief, the Head of Security.
Head of Security.
For Major Barrington, I think.
General Smythe.
General Smythe, that's the one I'm after. General Smythe.
The German Capitan guy.
Yeah, they are all perfect in their own way. Particular call out to Smythe because he is amazingly stupid.
Smythe is phenomenally dumb. As is the Head of Security, who spends the entire time on his own conspiracy theory and gets in the way of himself and everyone else.
Yeah, it was, for me, perfect.
And Smythe's death, objectively really funny. Deeply ironic.
I love all the baddies in that episode. They are all perfect.
Yes.
Much like most of that episode.
Yeah, that's the one episode that really, really, really stands out. It wasn't a good season, but that episode stands out. No spoilers for the end conversation about this, but I think it's pretty obvious where it's going.
I think we said it last episode, to be honest.
Yeah. So what's your flipping this around again? What is your worst baddie of season 6, Owen?
They'll just dominate your mind. It is the Dominators.
It is the Dominators, the dominant species, the best letdown of them all.
Because they were so hyped up. The name alone hypes them up.
You cannot call someone the Dominators and make them that wet. You just can't.
They are just so tedious to be around. they're not even that bad.
Mm.
They are just.
Yeah, you know it's rubbish when the Ice Warriors, who we're not the biggest fan of because of the damn voice, are in this season, and neither of us have named them.
Yeah. I'm just going to quickly mention the Ice Warriors. I'm going to pause it here because I'm going to go off topic for one moment.
Right, that's fine.
Just to quickly say something to you.
Yeah.
So you know how I'm listening to the Eighth Doctor's audio adventures?
Yeah, the McGann ones, yeah.
Guess who the evil people are in my next audio adventures?
Oh, no. No. Are they going to do it? Are they going to do the...
From the preview, they've toned it down.
Oh, good.
It just ends on an S whenever there's an S. And it's not just every sentence.
Yeah, but it was literally just like...
Yes, Ice Warriors. Yeah, so hopefully it will be a little less irritating. I was saying, James, before this, I've got a bad throat, so I shouldn't be doing this.
Oh, yeah, you've wrecked it. Doing Ice Warrior stuff, you'll have wrecked it. We'll see if you make it through to the end of this podcast.
Anyway, you go back. Let's go back on topic. I'm pressing play again on the play out timer.
Okay. I have gone with the Dominators, but I also haven't.
You went for Quarks, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I went for Quarks specifically. My God. The Quarks were put there to do merchandising, from what I can work out, and it shows. There's absolutely no thought. It's like Batman and Robin, which was a movie that was purposely designed to sell toys. It's never good when you design your narrative around toy sales.
I have put the Dominators on top because at the end of the day, the buck stops with the boss. And in this scenario, the Dominators are the boss.
That is true. And if they weren't on top, you'd have to call them the Submissors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's that as well.
So that's my reasoning, at least.
Yeah, I just think the Dominators are useless in their own right, but the Quarks are the most useless element of them, and in their own right, they deserve to be that. They're like devil Furbies with no soul and no cuteness. What?
I mean, calling Furbies cute and not devil anyway is a stretch. So we're going to stretch this on to the best death.
Best death
was the worst cliff. Worst.
Yeah, that was. I sometimes wonder about renaming. I sometimes wonder about renaming this award "Stupid Deaths," like the horrible history "Stupid Deaths" thing. Because most of the time we do best death. Stupid deaths, they're funny because they're true.
Mine is because it's the only death I remember from this season.
Great.
It is the melty face at the start of the Dominators.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a very good one, actually.
I think I know which one you're going to go with.
What do you think I'm going with?
Smythe.
See, I put the Dominators in mind because I just thought the idea of all of them after 6 episodes of nonsense getting blown up, 4 episodes of wherever it was, getting absolutely nuked to Kingdom Come was funny. But yeah, Smythe is particularly good as a death. I will change it to Smythe. I'll tell you why, listeners. It's 6 episodes we've had of the War Games. Smythe has been sort of portrayed as the big bad. As we've gone on, we've learned that there's a lot more layers to it. And by the end, Smythe puts the Doctor out for firing squad after having lied to his superiors that he has the thing that the Doctor has, then realising that only the Doctor has it, and that if he dies, the thing dies with him, then trying to stop his own firing squad. All the while, another firing squad arrives, finds their firing squad. He runs into his office, desperately trying to figure out, and some random bloke comes in and just shoots him, and that's it. And he makes out like and that's freaking it. And then the last thing you hear Smythe is the superiors about 2 minutes later going, "That fool deserved it," and we don't hear anything else about him.
I mean, in fairness, he did.
He did. He starts out, you're thinking, oh, this guy's got some power here because he has that. He has the hypnotic spectacles.
Yeah,
yeah. Because it's the German guy who has the monocle.
Yeah,
yeah. So he's got these spectacles, and you think he's all powerful and all corrupt, and then by the end you realise he's absolutely worthless. I think that's what I like about the War Games is every layer is just like, oh, so if they were back to this guy, this guy.
However, it does end slightly anticlimactically with a cheap Steve Jobs lookalike.
Yeah, Turtleneck Lord doesn't... You don't believe he could have done a genocide.
No.
You believe he could have designed an interesting new phone.
Yeah.
Here's how I see it. They're all good. Is Maxtable, though, beaten? No. And that's the important thing. He'll never be topped. What the hell is next, then? Because we've gone over the baddies. Oh, it's still got 3 to go. We've got 3 awards to go, and then the episode as well.
Yes.
So this one is...
Speed on along. Let's go.
Speed on along to expectation failure. That's the next one. The thing that let us down the most. And there's a few letdowns in this series, to be honest. So we're spoilt for choice, unfortunately. Owen, what did you go with?
You're going to hate me for this one.
Go on, then. I can hate you. Don't be the last episode of the War Games.
It was, but then I realised it wasn't actually that much. There wasn't that much ramping up to it because we didn't know what was going on, so it's not that one. This one was ones which I just couldn't answer because I couldn't think of anything. I'm definitely not padding. See, the obvious one is the Dominators, but I don't want to be that generic.
Yeah, that's obvious.
You go first. I'll see if I agree with you.
Okay. It's a pretty broad one, but my expectation failure is the fact that they did nothing with Jamie and the Doctor this season.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought, with Victoria gone, there was nothing in the way of Jamie being able to resume that banter that made season 4 so watchable and so good and so enjoyable. But instead of doing that, they just don't do anything with Jamie. And really don't give the Doctor much to do. I mean, he gets Zoe around for a few episodes, but they don't have the same relationship. It's more of it's a little bit like the Susan relationship in some ways. He sort of treats her like a little bit of a daughter, whereas with Jamie, it always felt like it was 2 equals bickering, or like an old married couple in a way, and that was always more engaging. So the fact they didn't go back to there is really annoying and disappointing for me.
Mm. You know, screw, I'm going to go for Dominators. Their name just doesn't suit them. I realise every negative thing we put here, which relies on one person, we've put for Dominators or something from that episode in there.
Because they don't dominate.
They're just a bit shit.
You know, it's ridiculous calling the Dominators dominant. It's like calling Manchester United the best team in England because they've won the most titles. It's just a completely wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Some people would say that is the worst thing James has ever said, which Manchester United is not the best team. But luckily for him...
That's not the worst thing I've ever said. That's entirely accurate.
We don't rely on James Stevenson for this award. We rely on the worst thing the Doctor did. So let's have a look. Worst thing the Doctor did.
I wish we had jingles for that one. Worst thing the Doctor did. What is the worst thing that the Doctor did?
See, the issue of this award has become less and less relevant for less which William Hartnell's around.
Yeah, because the first season, the Doctor was threatening to kill people, was threatening to abandon people, was threatening scraps with everyone he came across. Whereas now, Troughton, by the end, had mellowed a little bit. I mean, he was still quirky and still did some bad things, and I do have one in mind, but definitely there's less of it than there used to be.
Yeah.
Have you got one?
I can't think of one.
I have one. If you want me to pad.
Yeah, you pad for a second.
I'll pad for you, right? So my worst one is when the Doctor realizes at the end of the War Games that the Time Lords are coming. He is very quick to tell Jamie and Zoe that he is off.
Yes, I did sort of think about that one there being my worst one, but then I also
if he's off, he's leaving them there.
Yeah.
Well, I know that the Time Lords are going to return them to their own time, but even so, I mean, he's pretty much agreeing that will now happen. So he can't act too shocked when he gets to Gallifrey, and that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely not his high point, is it?
That is a low point. Because, I mean, in the end, Jamie and Zoe have to convince him to go. I mean, at the end of the day, the result is the same. But perhaps even worse because they don't have their memories with them anymore, which does write them out of all of the reunion stuff.
Oh, yeah. Worst story end is that because of that feature. I forgot about that.
You don't like them. Yeah, you've never liked the fact that their memories go.
No. That's always been my most hated plot line is memory wiping.
Yes, and then they just have the "it was all a dream" moment, and Jamie goes back to punching redcoats.
Yeah,
as if nothing had happened.
That might actually be the worst story end for me.
They do. They say though that they get to remember the first trip.
Actually, I might put that as my expectation failure. Jamie's and Zoe's leaving departure.
I still think it works emotionally because they get the time to say goodbye, but I agree that the memory wipe thing's a bit cheap.
Yeah.
It works in context because the Time Lords would do that.
Yeah, it works
in the story, but it is annoying, I guess.
And I hate any plot point which includes that sort of thing. So, what would we change? What would we scrap? What would we retcon from this season?
What would we wipe the memory of, you could even say?
Shut up, only I can do really shit segues.
Look, someone has to try and, catch up with the cavalcade of shit segues that you've provided over the past 6 end of season what happens. Yes, let's retcon this now.
What would you go with?
Can we just retcon the Ice Warrior voice and just make it normal? That's the one thing I've wanted the whole season. Can we just give him a normal voice?
Or just tone it down a bit. The S is fine. The S part of it is fine. It's everything else.
If they didn't do the S's, the Seeds of Death is a 4-parter.
Yeah.
That's how much there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would take out. And that's the one I'm giving it to, because you can do the Jamie's own wipe the memory thing, that's for sure. And I think you probably have gone with that. But yeah, that one particularly annoys me. You were shaking your head. So you haven't gone with retconning the retconning?
Well, I've just put that as the worst thing as worst end. I feel like I need to change it up. So I've gone with something which is potentially very controversial, and I'm fully prepared to defend this to the hilt. The Time
Lords happening.
The introduction of the Time Lords.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
How? What? Look, I'm willing to hear this out because I think I get why, but I want to hear it from you. Why?
So it's a multiple-fold problem, I think. First of all, it gets rid of the mystery of the Doctor. We now know where he comes from.
Yep. Okay. That's fair.
Second of all, it starts the problem which Doctor Who ends up happening, where it becomes very insular. It looks in and on itself, whether it be with Omega in one point and Rassilon, it's all very much a backward referencing to itself, which, say, when Russell T Davies got rid of them, it instantly got better. Every story where a Time Lord is involved, the story itself seems to be more rusty. At least in the ones I've watched.
Is that because do you think the Time Lords are kind of overpowered in reality?
No, I think it just makes the writers feel the need to back reference things even more, which then makes it feel so much more self-referential, which then puts off newer audiences. I mean, particularly in later Nathan Turner episodes, when they do become this bureaucratic thing, and we just everything seems to reference back to them. I don't realise which this is not this era, but things like Omega,
I know what you're talking about,
and Rassilon. It just feels like it makes the series become a lot. I realise this is a stupid thing to say about Doctor Who. It makes it feel a lot less serious and a lot more self-referential.
Do you see? I take the opposite approach, where I think if it's self-referential and it makes sense within a narrative, within a canon, that's good. Because like the whole thing about Davies was he always seemed to bring things back to the root of something, and things seemed like they'd been planned for multiple seasons. So I don't think self-referentialism is necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's the way it's handled.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The way which they're handled, which what I'm talking about here, but we're being massively played out. So
yeah, I know. I think this is heading into a wider conversation that needs to happen. But yeah,
Let's turn off for music playing out, and we can talk about this for a few more moments.
Yeah, I think this is more of a wide conversation now about, well, is Doctor Who better when it references itself or better when it ignores itself?
Yeah, it's for me. It's something which I've previously said. Every episode which involves time travel being integral to it, the quality feels worse. I mean, if you think about from what we've just been through with Doctor Who, for Timeless Children, we brought it back in for Time Lords.
Yep.
It's instantly made worse. Think about Hellbent, for Time Lords are involved. Generally recognised
Hellbent's rubbish.
As one of the worst stories of modern Who.
Hellbent's rubbish.
Like, I've forgotten the name of it, but Tennant's last one.
The End of Time.
End of Time. I'm going to argue the Time Lords don't exactly improve that story.
No, they add stakes to that story.
They add stakes to it, but they don't. There's not much there. And then
they kind of show up, bring Gallifrey in. They're there for 2 minutes. He says Rassilon, then shoots the star, and they're gone. Yeah,
for me, they always seem to drag down the show. At least in the episodes I've watched.
I will agree with you that the Time Lords are quite wieldy. That's the word I would use. There's a sense that when the Time Lords arrive, that anyone who's writing the episode has to be respectful of them and how big and powerful they are, and the episode gets taken over. So I can see it from some extension. But at the same time, the fact we know about the Time Lords and then not know all the details adds just another mystery in my head. So you're not losing the mystery too much in my head, but I get you're losing some of the mystery you had earlier on.
They are introduced well. They do keep an element of mystery to it, which I think is what Chibnall was trying to do with the Timeless Children thing.
Yeah.
But then it backfired because everyone went, for Ard insist, which it kind of was.
Yeah, I think the issue you get later on, and this is probably bringing it back to the Nathan Turner stuff, is that we learn too much at that point.
Yeah.
And it's way too wieldy. That I don't agree with. But certainly, I don't think introducing them was bad. I think what they did afterwards was bad.
Yeah.
And it made it to, that's a hell of a discussion, the idea. Because here's the question. Would you rather have a Doctor Who that has a really, like firm canon, where everything is referred back to, and, like, anything that happened in an episode has happened? Bearing in mind, we've rewritten the canon in the universe about 5 times. Or no canon at all, just do whatever, like it's The Simpsons, and we go from episode to episode.
I think what we've got is the best way, where we've kind of got half and half. This show is not afraid to retcon things. But it also does have the pillars of what makes Doctor Who. And I feel like if we did strictly apply to canon every possible turn, we wouldn't be here on the eve of the 60th anniversary of the show.
I agree with that. But at the same time, retconning the canon is canon sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like we can go too far with going, no, we need to retcon everything we don't like. Like, I do think, which I understand why Moffat did it. I feel like he did it in a bit too much of a haphazard way, where he just wiped everything which happened previously. I
think Moffat just wanted to have his own stamp, and I think he panicked and went with this whole, we're just going to reset the universe so I can do what I want.
Yeah.
Thing.
And of course, there is a way of not doing it, which is flux, and we do not need to discuss that.
Yeah, I still believe that Moffat choosing to retcon the Davies era is the biggest mistake in Who history.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another conversation, and we've already talked too much because we've got through our awards. And the last thing to talk about, the second to last thing, the penultimate thing, is to do our episode ranking.
Let's go through this quickly because we've talked for way too long.
We're cracking an hour.
Shall we start off at the bottom? Which one have you gone off with?
At the bottom for my season 6 ranking is The Seeds of Death.
Ooh, why have you gone with that one?
Annoying Ice Warriors, not a very good story, drags. There's a couple of good things in there I like, but not too much.
I've gone with The Dominators.
Wow, that low.
I just don't feel like there's everything which is good in there is being copied from other places. The story drags on. It doesn't really go anywhere. Everyone's a bit standard. Everyone's a bit cut and dry. It's just not the best.
Yeah, fair enough. Number 5? Owen, you want to go first this time?
I have gone for the Crotons
Same here.
because it was
First
forgettable.
episode good, everything else shit.
It was just forgettable. Nothing much happened there.
Yeah, it was a bit too reminiscent of stories in like season 2 and 3 that we didn't like.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of had all those elements and not really much else. Yeah, that was why I put Crotons 5. It just becomes so forgettable later on. You know, machines, woohoo. At least a man's face gets melted, so
Yes.
there's that.
Number 4, James.
The Dominators.
I've gone with the Seeds of Death.
Fair enough. Why have you gone with Seeds of Death at 4?
Because once you exclude the fact which the Ice Warriors are irritating as fuck, it's not too bad of a story. The story makes sense, and there is something there which is vaguely more memorable than the Dominators.
Yeah, the team out stuff is kind of interesting.
It poses interesting questions.
There's like a theme going on, so I can give them that. The reason I put Dominators at 4 is because there is quite a lot there. Like, you've got, obviously, the pacifist race. You have these discussions about whether it's right to fight or not. The Dominators do have a clear strategy, even though they're not very good at executing it. And honestly, a lot of it's funny. And I really do factor that into the account, whether I do laugh about the episode, because that does make it more enjoyable. And the Dominators I had more a laugh with than the other two, even though it's probably not as good as any of them.
So, the next one, number 3.
Number 3. Do you want to go, Owen?
I've gone for, I'm fairly sure the top 3 will be the same for both of us, for Mind Robbers.
Yes, Mind Robber 3.
It is an interesting story, but it doesn't quite know where it's going.
Yeah, I can go with that. It's very inventive, very trippy, tries a lot of interesting things, has some really cool ideas, but does lose sight of the core story going and exploring those ideas, and it can feel a bit grindy at times.
It's got lots of cool ideas, but they can never land them properly.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like there was a clear central idea that was tying all of this together. It felt like a bunch of ideas got thrown in and they haphazardly put them together and tried to make a story out of them. It's not bad, definitely good to watch because of all of the things that go on, but could have been better. Number 2. And then obviously we'll know number 1.
I'm fairly sure we can both say this one together.
Shall we?
Let's go.
The Invasion.
4 War Games.
You haven't put the War Games at 2.
No, I'm just pissing with you.
Yeah, go on.
It is The Invasion.
The Invasion. It's solid.
It's a good story. It does drag on a little bit at some points.
8 parts. It could have been 6 easy.
Yeah, but other than that, it's got a Brigadier in there, units in there, interesting, Cybermen are
in there.
It's nice to have a different style of Cyberman story.
It had a proper production values. It felt big. It felt scopy more so than we'd really had, probably since Dalek Invasion of Earth, to be honest, in terms of the scope.
Yeah.
So you have to give it a lot of credit.
The side character, which was a companion, but not quite a companion, whose name I've completely forgotten, was very good in there as well.
Oh, yeah. She should have been a companion. Oh, honestly. Trade her in and Jamie, and it's done with. That would have been fantastic. And number 1 then.
Of course, for War Games, because it's actually
really good.
It's a lot better than it deserves to be, quite frank, with a 10-episode runtime. Yeah,
10 episodes to make it that good is phenomenal. Never got bored. Watched it in one sitting, and it's about 4 and a bit hours.
Yes.
Yes. Then again, I can't talk because I've spent the weekend we're recording this on. I did the whole of Stranger Things in like one go. So
that's why you're so tired.
I say one go. I slept in the after episode 4 because that one. If anyone's watched it, you know how episode 4 is. That thing is damaging. So after that, I slept. Then I woke up and I did the other 3.
Right. Shall we quickly go through the season rankings? Shall we just read them out?
Yeah, because I think it's interesting where we're trying to put this season because it's not too bad necessarily. It's just not very good.
Right, it's time for the 5th take of this bit. If you want all the random outtakes from this segment, go on YouTube. They're probably there at one point.
Before we rank the seasons, can you rank your versions of these takes for me?
Right, so in 6th place, I have got Season 2.
I have Season 5.
In 5th place, I have got Season 3.
And I've got Season 2.
In 4th place, I have got Season 5.
I have season 6.
In third place, I have got season 6.
And I've got season 3.
In second place, I have got series 1.
I have got series 1 as well.
And in first place, I have got series 4.
Series 4. That'll do. Season 4.
Yes. So I've put this one here just below, just above even season 5, because I feel like For War Games is perfect in almost every way, and also it's got the invasion, whereas last time we only really had for one good episode.
Yeah, I can fully agree with that. Season 6 is definitely better than 5 was.
The issue which we have with this season, which is why it's hard to rank them both against each other, is that yes, last season didn't have as many good ones. I feel like the other ones had better production values in them.
I'll agree with that, but certainly in this season when they got it right, it was more right.
Yeah.
The highs were much higher, and yeah, the lows were a bit lower, but if you balance it out, you'd go through a lot for another War Games.
So finally, we've come to the end of this. You will not have heard most of the mess which happened during that last segment, but you know,
the best recording experience I've had during the production of this show.
Oh god, it's been many meltdowns. Right,
a great milestone, and another milestone. Next time you hear from us, will be in colour.
Woo!
Season 7, John Pertwee, Unit, Liz Shaw, Lethbridge Stewart. It's all happening. It's all colourful. It's all exciting. We'll be there. I hope you will be as well. Owen, where can they make sure to be there from? That was ropey.
I have got absolutely no clue what you're asking me.
What should they do if they want to listen to Season 7, Owen?
Which is not what you asked me last time at all.
No, it's not. It was the wrong words. The idea in my head was great. It was just I didn't execute it in English.
Right, so if you want to catch us next time, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, because then you'll be notified as soon as we release our next episode.
And if you enjoyed our end of season, what happened for season 6, if you've watched any of season 6, if you've watched any of the future episodes, past episodes, have anything you want to chat about who, including the new stuff, we're available on Twitter at Black Archive Pod, and even via email, which is blackarchivepod@gmail.com.
So yeah, so feel free to let us know how completely wrong we are and how the Dominators is just a piece of art.
Yes, remember to rank Owen's takes when they come out.
Right, thanks very much for listening and have a good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.